dentist.
She's my house cleaner. He's the waiter. She's my cousin.
They are illegal immigrants. To hire, feed, or shelter illegal immigrants is a crime.
So far, our dystopias have all been ones where the future is highly uncertain, possibly bleak, dark, and where hope is hard to come by, but they've all had a future. The mediocre misery of Brazil, the post-apocalyptic world of Akira, and the City of Lost Children. They've all been late 20th century visions as the world came out of the darkness of the Cold War and prepared to reshape itself. Tonight we look at our first 21st century vision of dystopia, one where it's not even certain that a future exists, at least not past this generation. We are talking about Alfonso Cuarón's 2006 Children of Men.
100 years from now, there won't be one sad fuck to look at any of this. What keeps you going?
You know what it is, Theo? I just don't think about it.
Based on a 1992 dystopian novel by P.D. James, which paints a vision of a depopulating England in 2021, racked by infertility, and those who resist the hopelessness of not having a future. The movie version scraps the world laid out by the novel to create a far more 21st century vision of what the infertility crisis would undoubtedly look like.
I said, what's wrong with you? Look at me, I said, what's wrong with you?
St. Gabriel, help us. We
Shut up! Right, you up, out!
St. Gabriel, come to our aid in this hour.
Alfonso Cuarón would have help from 5 different screenwriters, including himself, Timothy Sexton, David Arata, and the duo who would go on to write Iron Man, Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby, as well as enlisting Clive Owens, who stars as Theo, to work on some of his own rewrites. Originally, Beacon Pictures bought the rights to the book with no director attached, enlisting Paul Chart to work on it, then Fergus and Ostby. Alfonso Cuarón broke through in 2001 with Y Tu Mama Tambien, and then signed on to work on the project with Timothy Sexton, who he had read the book, while Cuarón just read an abridged version before going off to work on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. The screenplay was handed to Arata, whose rewrite finally got Clive Owens to agree to star. I think knowing this whole chronology is extremely important because Beacon acquired it in 1997, and by the time it came out, it was 2006. This version of Children of Men is very much a product of the War on Terror. The England we get in a world where a child has not been born in over 18 years, and it's now 2027, meaning the infertility began in 2009, is a police state racked by constant bombings, much in the way that Brazil is. But in this dark, bleak, sterile world, refugees, largely Muslims, Caribbean people, African people, and Romani people, called refugees, are blamed for this constant violence. It's implied that while the rest of the world has fallen to the chaos, only Britain soldiers on, keep calm and carry on, etc., chin up. Along with the pro-Fuji underground activist network called the Fishes. Cuarón has been very open about his influences. Brazil is of course a big one, but also A Clockwork Orange, The Battle of Algiers, and Nosferatu director F.W. Murnau's 1927 Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. Interestingly, Cuarón has also talked about how he's reading a lot of Zizek during the production process. Theo is a former political radical and pro-Fuji sympathizer who has since been demoralized and beaten and just wanted to be left alone after the son he had with Julianne Moore, his estranged wife Julian, who also happens to be the leader of the Fishes, died as a child.
They wanted to change the world, and their faith kept them together. But by chance, Dylan was born.
This is him?
Yeah, that's it.
The film also stars Michael Caine as Theo's best friend Jasper, a former political cartoonist, whose wife has been tortured into a catatonic state, much like Brazil. Chiwetel Ejiofor as the Fish Lieutenant Luke, and Claire Hope Ashady as Key, a Fuji carrying a huge secret. Theo's world of miserable drinking and working as a civil servant comes to an abrupt end when Julian makes contact with him again, asking him to help Key get to the coast without revealing her secret. When Julian is ambushed and killed right in front of Theo and Key, it slowly dawns on Theo that the Fishes are not what they seem. Well, actually, they're pretty fucking sketchy, so maybe they totally are what they seem, but, with different plans. It's up to Theo to get Key, who we find out is the first woman to become pregnant since the infertility began, to the coast to hopefully get in touch with the Human Project, a mysterious group of scientists somewhere in the sea, with both the government and the Fishes on their trail. Look, we've covered Children of Men in the very beginning of the show, but there's so much more to talk about here that we didn't get to then. The iconography and symbolism throughout is incredible. It's absolutely steeped in war on terror dystopian horror. From the signs urging the British citizens to turn in refugees, to the Abu Ghraib-style detention camps, to cages on every corner for refugees to be shoved into.
Do not support terrorists. Britain supports you and provides you shelter. Do not support terrorists.
We get the iconography of fallen Soviet art, of decadent Western art, and questions of meaning. Does art even matter when there'll be nobody left to see it? We get a full sequence where a detention camp turns into an intifada. The world of Children of Men has so much to talk about, and its absolutely grotesque fallen vision of, well, pretty much now, but without any kids. Ideas of religion, of Key, an African former prostitute refugee, carrying the first child. After Cuarón became fascinated with the single origin hypothesis, it was originally Julianne Moore who was going to carry the first child, as in the book, but this version works so much better and is so much more interesting. Multi-layers of race, class, and refugee status.
The government will take the baby and parade a posh black English lady as the mother.
Nobody's taking my baby.
The acknowledgement that the government will want nothing more than to kill Key to replace her with a black woman of posh English birth. Entire sequences are shot like actual war footage, which is both exhilarating and incredibly jarring. And on top of all of that, we get Michael Caine in a bad hippie wig, smoking weed and telling people to pull his finger.
Pull my finger. Look. Pull my finger. I'll do it.
Before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Then hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Super chats are now open. If you have any pressing questions, send us a super chat, which helps me maintain the expenses for the show, for which I am obligated by the rules of the Geneva Convention to stop everything and ask the panel. Another way to help us out is to become a patron and give us money every month. In exchange, you get access to all of our after parties, bonus content, and we'll tell you even more movies we watched recently. Patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. We have a Movie Night Extravaganza Discord. There's an invite link in the episode description, and we have a Letterboxd HQ account. So those are 2 more places to follow along with us. Okay, let me introduce the illustrious panel. Conan Neutron is the host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and the frontman for the band Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. You can check out his music and hopefully buy some at neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Kristina Oakes is a co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and a Twitch streamer. You can find her streaming at twitch.tv/Cosmopolitics. All of her social media accounts are also at Cosmopolitics. She's on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and even occasionally on Letterboxd. Katie Baldassaro is the co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, a director, writer, and actress who wrote and co-directed Girl in the Basement, along with appearing in horror movies like The Purge Election Year and The Devil's Nightmare. You can catch her voice acting in the podcast series, The Starwell Foundation, and she is the host of What If I Don't Like It, and on TikTok at Movie Runtime. I, of course, am your host, who doesn't really totally see what the big deal is, like just let the species die out. I'm not sure why all of you guys are making this so intense and weird. Forrest Miller. It would be really funny if this was a 28 Days Later situation and it was just England that was infertile.
Well deserved, some might say.
Pull my finger. Go ahead. Pull my finger.
You know that was all ad-libbed? That was just him deciding to go off book, and they're like, sure, go ahead, Michael
No,
Caine.
I didn't.
You're
awesome.
Michael Caine. And he was like, yeah, I want to do a pull my finger bit.
Michael Caine.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting to watch it now because at the time the idea of there being like a geriatric Gen Xer was like what, right? But he's got like, first of all, lots of white people dreads on these old folks, as there would be, right? But there's also piercings, tattoos, like all the Lollapalooza generation, is represented as old timers, and it was so crazy at the time when this came out, because I saw this when it came out a couple times, and it was insane to see because it was like, wow, I've never seen that. And now it's like literally just reality. I mean, not me, of course, but everyone else.
We're not that close to 2027, so
it's so close.
There's definitely no race riots that happen in Britain at all lately,
Yeah.
And it's very funny to see that kind of depiction of him, especially because Michael Caine is, by his own admission, just doing John Lennon. So
Yeah.
you know, all these millennials see themselves as being John Lennon is also the kiss of like narcissistic ass fart smelling. Like, oh, do you identify with this fellow? Yeah, okay.
Well, there's the two kind of insufferable things where it's the doula who's like like
oh my god, just
she's like yin and
Yes.
yang, and she's like I forget Siddhartha, and I forget what the other one is, and he's like Lennon and McCartney.
right. Hilarious, but also the fact that he's a political cartoonist, right?
Yeah.
Like I love that, and he's based off of like a real life political cartoonist that was I want to say in The Guardian, maybe along those lines, and that's who did the actual. Like you see the cartoons like in the background, you know. And then so many detail in this. By the way, one of the most detail laden things, where they do the extraordinary rendition of Clive Owen, and it's the room with like newspapers everywhere. Every one of those newspapers was produced specifically for this, like with like a headline to be relevant to that world.
Yeah.
And apparently that was like the hardest part of the production to do is all these newspapers because there's so many of them.
I always notice a different one every time I watch
Yeah.
it. So this time, the one that I noticed was Russia nukes Kazakhstan.
Yeah, because they have this whole like, but that gets into and I don't want to take us too far off base, but like that gets into why one of these things this movie works so well for me is that it doesn't like stop and give you an exposition drop or anything. It just shows you. You're just right in it. Immediately. Like you see it on commercials in the background, you know, like you know, the suicide drug, the quietus that they have on there, where it's like, oh yeah, well of course, yeah. I guess if there's no hope, sure, some people want to do that.
In the book Children of Men, quietus is actually the name of the drowning. They have these mass drowning ceremonies when you're 60 years old. They drown all the 60-year-olds, like in a Midsommar kind of way. I bet that's where they got that idea from Midsommar, where they throw the elders off the cliff at one point.
That's actually based on a myth of folks from Scandinavia. It's not proven, but that's a myth that they.
I knew that part of it, but I also feel like that's like the ceremonial part of it, right? Like like in the book Children of Men, they have quietus as like this mass like natural drowning ceremony, which is kind of funny because you think that like they'd be trying to keep the human race around for as long as they can, but it's like nah, well let's just and in this movie
you can't produce.
Yeah, have you seen this world? Does it look like a place you'd want to hang out in?
No, but I'm not saying you want to hang out. I'm saying like you'd think the government in a situation like this, right? Like
but private corporations are gonna like they will literally kill their buyer base to make money.
Yeah, we have to assume that there's a lack of resources as well. I think it's really interesting that Alfonso said that he basically approached writing the script in a very similar way to Garland approached Annihilation. Although Garland actually read Annihilation, both of them were like, hey, I really jive on this, but there's a different story I want to tell in your world, and I'm going to do that. And they both work out very well for being so deviant from their original source.
Yeah, like the Book of Children of Men. There's some like religious connotations I think just kind of weaken the narrative, frankly. But of course I do because that's not really.
Well, it's also the way like it's the Julianne Moore character.
Yeah, there's characters that it's a little more. It reads well as a book, but for a movie, and especially a movie that moves as fast as this does, and again without big exposition jumps, I think it works so much better. Like it would be a lesser, still good. But it'd be a lesser movie if you ask me if they read it all.
Also, the thing about
I just think that it's interesting. He didn't read it at all. He was like, "No, I don't want it to spoil me."
I thought so. It didn't seem like he read like an abridged kind of version. Then I was watching the interview that he did. He read a page summary. Like he read like the
like an abridged Sparks notes.
So the sucky thing about that is unfortunately means a bunch of people are going to be like, oh well, Cuarón did it. Like yeah, but you're not that dude. Like you're not that good. Like you should.
His screenwriter did read
from Pride and Prejudice. I just read a summary of it and just went with that.
Yeah. I feel like it would be like this. Yeah, okay.
And this script was heavily re-edited by two people who did not get any credit, like on the actual rewrite. Right. But there is more than one hand involved here.
Well, I said it in intro. There's 6 hands, and not including Alfonso Cuarón, including Clive Owen, who went back over it and was like, "Oh my, I wouldn't say this, I wouldn't say that," because he had such a big role in putting this movie together that they like let him go back over the script, and he's like, "Oh, I think I would add this, I would add that."
I really love that. He decided to not make it an action hero story. He wanted it to be more of an everyman, and that's what you guys were driving on, saying like you really like that.
Yeah,
like because there's no he takes the only violent actions that happen on his part are defensive. Like he never picks up a gun and starts shooting people like, you know, Jason Statham style.
Almost
or something.
Almost indirect. Like the few actions, defensive actions too, is like opening a car door, right? Like
right, exactly.
Yeah, the car door.
When Julianne Moore has literally been shot in the throat, and then and that's an amazing scene too. One of the great long shots in this movie, where it sets off this Rube Goldbergian chain of events. He gets that guy again later too, but all of it's defensive. Like this is a someone who is taking heroic action, but doing so without actively inciting violence, which is so rare to see in action movies. So rare. Yeah,
and it's almost like he's being forced into action as opposed to choosing action, which almost feels like a comment on our own environmentalism, where like even the best of us are just recycling because like we don't want to feel shamed for it. That kind of like, I guess if I have to, which makes a protagonist that feels way more relatable, because you could be like that would be more like what I would do as opposed to actually nut up and kill a bunch of people.
Right. Because think about where he's at just real quick. Like, you know, like just think about where he's, you know, they're the youngest person that alive, like, has been killed, and people are like broke up about it in the way that people are broke up about royal family that they've never met or something along those lines. And he just used as an excuse to get out of work, which is hard relatable, by the way.
Yeah.
But then you see him like, you know, he's putting the alcohol in the cup and then it's just like very mundane. And then like, oh yeah, and then the cafe explodes, and you're like, oh my god.
Well,
like,
and then it has
crazy.
a really awesome Michael Caine line where he's like, you know, if you had taken cream and sugar or whatever, like we'd no longer be, no longer be on Earth. And it's like,
well, and this is one of the few movies to show that 2000s era terrorism hyper awareness that usually manifested somehow as jingoism and torture is good, actually.
Oh my god!
Those are the two things.
Do you remember what that level like of? Remember like the colored like levels of like, you know, terrorist awareness or whatever? Like we were like at a level like orange or whatever. That was so weird. That just kept us on edge.
Bay Area Rapid Transit, the subway of the Bay Area of the Oakland, San Francisco, and whatnot. They closed the restrooms due to terrorism. I'm like, well, look, I've seen those restrooms. There were definitely some terrorist acts performed in there, but most of them were bodily style. But no, and they kept them closed because they just wanted to. But yeah, that was the like report suspicious activity, right? That was like the big Homeland Security
thing.
They still have those.
Yeah. Every time you go on the subway, which is why Brazil feels so prescient in the 1980s, like crazy prescient, because everywhere you go, it's like, you know, report a friend, you know, don't be specific. Report. Like you have all those signs.
Bioterrorism, exactly. Yeah,
they never took those signs down out of New York City. But the whole thing about nonviolence, right? There's a split between, which is why she gets got. Julian, who's like running the thing, who thinks that it could be a nonviolent revolution. We just show that there's another human, and then that Luke character, who's like, you know, the biggest fucking fat ass scumbag you've ever seen. Like, there's no way that like, if you kept going, we wouldn't find out that like the fishes were like a, you know, like a Fed plot or something in the beginning. But like, but that Luke character, right? He thinks that it has to be violent. It's a violent uprising. It's like an Islamist violent uprising in the end. And then there's the Julian character who thinks it can be nonviolent, and Theo seems to fall on the Julian side of that split, even though he's no longer an activist. Now he's just he's a civil servant because you know, throw a rock in Britain, you hit a civil servant anyway. So
it kind of reminds me of the episode of All in the Family where they put someone puts a swastika on Archie's front door, and like a radical Jewish activist was like, "We gotta, you know, it's anti-Semitism. We gotta fight with violence." And Meathead's like, "No, don't do that." And then the Jewish activist gets car bombed in the end.
All in the Family, good job.
And roll credits. No, but yeah, I think that's important to note because again, we're thinking about the depictions of terrorism. Like you get a lot of ones. Again, like I said, it's torture is good actually, and jingoism is most of what you're seeing. And this is one of the first movies I saw that postulated, first of all, that there could be like a near future that looks quite a bit like the crappy present, but like extrapolate a little bit forwards. Meaning, you know, the blaming everything on immigrants was very much in the zeitgeist then, but it was considered taboo to say the quiet part loud at that point.
Yeah,
you know, this is pre-Trump and you know the nativist sects being more
Trump.
Hidden.
Which is why
I mean, he was still around. They were still saying it, but they were like, "Oh, those are nutcases."
Well, which is why Alfonso
now it's mainstream.
Cuarón, his big thing is he wanted London, and this version of London is literally Mexico City, because Mexico City had already been hit by the like you know, illegal immigration kind of crisis and been turned into like this center for like rounding up illegal immigrants from Latin America to make sure that they didn't get into, and that's only gotten worse and worse and worse, obviously. But I think he has a very different perspective as someone who lived, who was born and raised in Mexico City. Yeah.
And it kind of creates this like fractured future version as opposed to these beautiful future versions that we get. It's very gross. It's very dirty. It's very real in that way that like as we start to experience this kind of dystopia, people are going to get closer and closer and closer together. It feels unbreathable, untenable.
It's dingy. It looks like it smells. Like everything looks terrible, but they still have digital billboards advertising stuff on the buses. It's just that it's suicide drugs and stuff like that instead. And real quick, it's in the background of the show for people who listen to the audio that it's like Pigs on the Wing. Like not only is it like an homage to Pink Floyd, which at the time Animals has just turned 50. At the time, but like they actually the background of his friend who has the art and whatnot, it's the same power plant that they shot that album cover at. Animals for Animal Farm, one of the early class conscious English literature masterpieces, and like little things interwoven like that. That's sort of like if you know kind of thing. I think are so cool because it gives you a shorthand for this world and like why it's terrible, how it's screwed up, and again without having someone like I'm not gonna say the name, but there was a movie I saw a few years ago that I thought was fine, but it did the opposite of this. Like it gave you the
Batman.
This is. No, it wasn't.
No, he's still watching that.
Yeah, I'm actually still watching. I haven't finished it yet. Still going. But it did all this unnecessary exposition of like, well, this one begat that one, and this and this and this, and I was like, well, wait, like, why am I watching this movie? Like you told me everything.
Genesis, the movie. Here's a list of names, but there's also like they have the King Crimson drop, right? Like
so good. Court of the Crimson King. First of all, banger song, like too, and like. Not something that you just I'm telling you right now as someone that was around, you weren't hearing that in movies at the time.
Yeah, the soundtrack for this could easily put it on. If this was on the Criterion Channel, this could be a choice for soundtracks that bang or just great music. And if you stop to think about the songs that are playing, each and every one has a deliberate reason for playing at the moment in which it is playing. Like everything in its right place. In this scene where he's trying to connect and feel in the box while he's talking to his best friend and just escape. Like there's so many times if you stop and you go, so it's not only thoughtful in the way that you're saying the exposition of the shots and the props. It's like, the sound is also thoughtful. The acting's also thoughtful.
Hush by Deep Purple. There's a very, very key scene there, which is great. Although you don't get to see Chris Hemsworth doing a cool dance like in Bad Times at El Royale, but you know.
He also his cousin that who lives in the court of the Crimson King. He also is Guernica, the Picasso, like the insane Picasso war art.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that scene made it really hard. That scene was a really hard scene for me to want to keep feeling that this movie was hopeful because we see Guernica, which is an anti-war painting, in the whole back of this scene where this guy just keeps saying like, I just don't think about it. This humanity will never learn.
Right.
It will just kill itself out. It's such a testament to the stupidity.
Keep repeating itself. Yeah, and there is definitely an Aphex Twin in there too. It's a remix specifically for the movie. But yeah, that was kind of a mind blower at the time because there was definitely a Pi and like whatever hackers and stuff like that where you got like electronic music like in movies, but like having it used in historical context, and again because this is future state historical context, but in a way that the way he shoots this, I love that he brought up, and I love Blade Runner, it's one of my favorites, but he's like, I wanted to be more Battle of Algiers than Blade Runner, and I was like, God damn it, that's like what makes this so cool, because nobody really was doing that, and to have that verite style of just like this looks like it could be like a documentary in a way, like it looks very real, it looks very, very again, you can smell it.
They had to create a lot of cameras to be able to do that as well. Like the scene that we were talking about before where we lose Julianne Moore's character, that needed a camera to be able to be shot that was stuck in the middle of the car and not operated by a cameraman so it could spin 360, breaking many 180 rules, twice. and get all that action while being remotely. That's just mind-blowingly hard.
As a long shot, and it's a composite of long shots. It's not one long shot. Maybe as cool as that be, but like that scene, especially where you see the approach and you see them coming, you see the car come down, then you see all the people come in. It still go. It still goes really hard.
Mm-hmm. It goes so hard that it inspired Last of Us. I know last week we were talking about how City of Lost Children inspired Bioshock. Yeah. Last of Us said that this was a key inspiration for them and how they shot certain scenes. And if you stop and if you've played Last of Us and then you watch that scene again, you've played that exact cutscene. They very heavily.
Wow. I didn't know that. Cool. Right on. No, and it's beautiful. The whole thing looks gorgeous too. Like the cinematography is amazing, the direction's amazing, and again, there was a rash of the post Blair Witch Project. Everyone was going handheld and like, oh my god, I'm gonna vomit in the movie theater every time I'm out. But it's done so well here, and again, it's that Battle of Algiers style, but like updated.
It takes on like the form and the content of like one of those BBC documentaries where at the time they were all over the place, where it was like, oh, they're going to Lebanon or they're going to any like Iraq, and they're gonna be like, and it's like a weird jingoistic, but also like, because the BBC has such a great way of being like, isn't this so sad, but also we should keep doing it, like
British people.
And like speaking of the editing, it was nominated for 3 Oscars.
Right, who was it up against this year? Yeah, like, and it's crazy because you look at this movie now, it's like this. How did this not win every single award? But I remember this was actually kind of a heavy year, I think, right? This
didn't win any of its ones that it was nominated for.
Yeah, photography and best film editing. Let me look up the 2000.
So it got So it got nominated for technicals, as it should. But I think did Cuarón even get a best director nod on this? I think it got one for Gravity, right?
Oh, this was the year. This was the year, by the way, that The Departed won.
Okay, all right, okay.
And Forrest Whitaker won for Last King of Scotland.
Departed, I think they came around this time. Yeah. Last King of Scotland. I forgot all about that one. Yeah. All right. So it was a strong year, but like as far as cool, but of those movies, which has aged the best?
Yeah.
And I think it's really
maybe too good.
I think it's really worth noting that those shots work because the tech is there to have them work. Because you're saying like Blair Witch didn't work for you. That's because they tended a cheap ass camera to not a cinematographer. These are still chest mount. So handheld can vary. These are still chest mounted handheld versus
Right. I'm shaking the camera. There's something. It
still weighs 20 pounds. Yeah.
And let the record show, I love the Blair Witch Project, and it absolutely works for me. What I don't like is everybody ripping that style off and thinking that's what made that movie cool, which was not.
Yeah. By the way, this was the year that The Departed swept every category.
Yeah, it was real. It was.
Yeah. So they got best editing. They got best editing. They got best adapted screenplay.
Departed.
That was like,
it's a good movie, but
I like The Departed, but it's like it's not even Scorsese's best movie. Like,
no, it's like
B tier. It's definitely B tier.
Mid B tier. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's no Children of Men, and again, I'll love that Cuarón got his later on, but
Children of Townies.
And
this is the better movie.
Great, good, and worth still getting. It had its own other.
On its own merits.
Problems and issues and merits that were completely different. Like this was filmed in a temporal space and time, so like, it was a little different.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I was a weirdo enough that I was into Tu Mamá También, and I was like, wow, that's a cool weird movie, right on, But I bit of an outlier. Like a lot of people. I mean, this movie kind of caught on with the home video crowd and home viewing crowd. But I mean, I saw there's this movie theater, the Parkway in Oakland, that would have like second run movies, beer and pizza, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where I saw it. And I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this seems interesting. I'll check this out. And the next thing you know, I was like dragging people, you gotta come see this movie with me. It's amazing. You'll love it. And everyone was like, wow, that was really great. But like it took that word of mouth thing because it was I mean, it wasn't like obscure, but it didn't hit on the monoculture where the monoculture was at the time.
Yeah.
I guess maybe
Also,
it was
dude,
where
that
you were
Convenient Truth came out that time too.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
where you were.
It was me and one other person that saw that movie, by the way. Literally in the theater. It was me and another dude, and we were like opposite sides of the theater. I was like, I see you.
I definitely saw this when it came out. I was aware of the director from Y Tu Mama Tambien because that had come out, and then he did Harry Potter, and we all discussed how when that happened, everybody was like, "Okay." I mean, I'm not sure why, but let's do it. And so, like, this was a mainstream movie that was in all of the theaters where I lived when it came out, and it was just like this really cool movie you could see. Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't like, oh, Children of Men. The buzz about Children of Men is huge. No, like it was just like the kind of thing where if you knew, you knew. Like people that are into movies would be like, oh yeah, it's good. You should watch it.
It hits now.
I wonder if the buzz was more intense in England at the time.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who I would ask about that.
The thing, so what I'd heard about is, just real quick, what I'd heard about is there was a lot of single shot sequences, which as a film nerd, I was like, oh, really? That's interesting. Okay. So like, and then he's like, oh, there's one really long shot that's like, it's like Touch of Evil, but it's an action scene. I'm like, well, all right, I'll watch this. Whatever it is, I'll watch it. Great. Sounds awesome. I love Touch of Evil.
Which is another Mexico City kind of thing too.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
It's the movie where Charlton Heston plays a Mexican. We're making a movie where
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It does do very badly. I just looked it up. It only made 35 million domestically of the 75 million that it cost. It does wind up breaking even, but it doesn't do particularly well. I guess because I grew up in New York, I can't have I was like, yeah, it was in every theater.
Right, yeah, but you're in New York, yes. But also, yeah, but I think you're right. I think it did better worldwide, right? I think it did better after it got it did well enough after it got out from the US.
Yeah, it kind of just breaks uneven.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the reverse of what's happening. Like we're noticing, like there's articles like how come big blockbusters like Wicked and Gladiator and Moana 2 aren't doing well overseas, but they're crushing American markets. We have a reason for that. Like it's almost like the reverse of that. I guess a lot of people were probably more focused on, climate change in America, I'm assuming, and not, immigration and
sure. No, that's super. Kristina, you're dead on, because think about what's happened since this came out. We had like the European migrant crisis in like 2015, right? We had the Brexit. We had Trump, sorry, got to bring up his name, and COVID-19, right? Like, so we had like all of these things that have happened since then that have just been normalized as like things that we all are dealing with that were literally concepts in sci-fi when this movie came out.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to the Mexico City thing, right? Like a lot of the stuff that with the migrant crisis, with a lot of the stuff with refugees, with the whole idea that we don't have enough resources to take in all of these immigrants. Like all of that was happening in 2006 in America, because with the border with Mexico, but not yet in England. And I bet like in England, they're like, oh, that would never happen here. Like we're friendlier to immigrants here. But like, then the Syrian migrant crisis happens, and they're like, oh no, they actually, as of last year, they're putting an actual migrant detention center in Bexhill, the place from Children of Men. Like literally.
And remember the kerfuffle when AOC called him a concentration camp, but then there was 2 weeks of debate about what did or did not constitute a concentration camp.
Oh my God, that was like two of the worst weeks of my life on Twitter.
Children in cages, mate.
but also it's a great use of framing, because again, if you it's inexcusable, but like having people argue about the definition of concentration camps is, but it was more hidden. When this came out, and it was something. It's not that it wasn't there, but it wasn't. The quiet part was still said quietly. You're right. It is every day now.
Yeah. Well, and because like we like as the nation, I guess, we're focused on our foreign policy for once, and like America's
it is literally anybody would talk about post 9/11. Like everybody's a foreign policy expert suddenly.
Yeah,
and it was all that was allowed to be discussed.
And it was the time when our the American opinion towards the Iraq War and towards just our policy in general, right? Like Abu Ghraib, the whole story, like that story broke. Like this movie comes out around the time that our foreign policy is on everyone's lips, rather than the idea of domestic policy. And then I feel like some of it kind of flipped with Trump, and then everyone's talking about domestic policy and the immigration crisis again. And it's like, but I feel like during the Bush administration, Like it's like, oh, that's a Texas president, blah blah blah. Like we got to focus on the our problems in the Middle East and
sure,
and like
and also Guantanamo Bay was just starting to be in the news, and there was the
isn't that not close yet?
There was the female interrogator. I don't remember her name. I don't care, but like took the picture with like the guy, right, and was like just very blasé about.
Oh yeah, those photos.
Yeah, and that was huge. So the idea of people are
no, but they're defending our freedoms, Conan. Come on.
Well, but they were shocked by it, right? Like the populace, like, wow, is this what's going? Is this how we're treating this? That's allegedly the most serious thing ever, and all our media has been showing how serious it is. And like you're sitting there, like taking, like, what we would now call selfies with, with the person being tortured. That's inhuman. And so I think some of that is in here for sure, with how the refugees are being just detained. Like they're in these pens, these very concentration camp style pens. It's like it's like Japanese internment style.
Yeah.
We can't even call what Israel's doing to Palestinians with their camps concentration camps when it's the very definition.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but it just was crazy that how much of it was sort of euphemized away at the time. So this is one of those kind of like pokes in the dam for that culturally, to be like, this is very close to what is happening now. The now of that point being then, and then the projected future being the actual now that we're in.
Not that far from now. We're about 2 years away.
It's fascinating, like the idea of concentration camps or like detention, and that's the euphemism, right? Like detention centers, but like concentration camps being used as like it kind of got written off after World War II. Like, oh, that was the Nazi thing, concentration camp. But like both America and England used concentration camps way before, like decades before Nazis did. Like the English used them in the Boer War, and we used them in the Spanish-American War.
Mussolini, that's where Mussolini was doing that. We learned about Benito Mussolini yesterday on my channel, and oh my God, why did women have a thing for him? But like he was doing the same shit. He was doing the same shit too, like putting other, he wanted to invade Indonesia or something like that. Like it was like a whole. Like,
you mean Ethiopia?
Ethiopia. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, but I don't like it's kind of like the images of the detention, like the Bexhill Center, right? Like has this huge prison, and then once you're in there, they kind of just throw you in there, and you can like do whatever as long as you're not one of the people that either get caged as a threat or like because they don't have the resources to detain people the way that you would like want to in a resource-rich environment. Like
it's like Arkham Asylum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine if you will.
But like when they go into Bexhill, those pictures do mirror the Abu Ghraib's kind of pictures, right? Like when people finally got into there and started taking pictures of the cages when you first get in, and the detention facility part, and the way that they torture people, like as they drive through the bus. Like as they drive the bus through the gates, and you see like literally they're popping the woman in the back of the head because she was praying to whatever deity she worships. I don't know. She was the doula, right. But like as they execute her and they drives away, like that's all I could really think about is like the Abu Ghraib style detention facilities, or like Guantanamo Bay too. But
those literally penned up like animals. In a movie where animals have basically taken the place of children, like so many great animals in this film, and you see people caring for them like, in a way that's clearly this is as good as it's going to get, because there's it's the end of the human race, right?
So and every animal loves Theo, which is like it's a perfect.
He's freaking Dr. Doolittle somehow.
I love when the kitten's just climbing up his leg.
That's a great scene. What are you gonna say, KT? What was that?
There's like a definite feeling that he might be. Like who's Jesus? What's the name of Jesus's father? That Joseph feeling, where like he's there with Mary. She's this pregnant woman he didn't impregnate. He's gonna take care of her the best that he can, and all these animals seem to love him in a way that gives us this like saintly character about him, this more than character. I feel like all the animals are there to tell us that like Theo is a good guy.
Joseph, the guy that got cucked by God.
It gets laid on way more thick in the book, and not. In a way that I feel like is a little bit of a detraction to the story personally, but I think it's done very subtly here, which is also funny because we see him. He's very much a flawed figure. He's drinking on the job. He's yeah, he's definitely like, I would say reacting as any empathetic person would in a situation like this, which is shutting the hell down and like, protecting your heart the best you can.
And doing things like gambling just for like that little bit of a rush.
Yeah,
like,
just to feel something.
Yeah.
Yes. There's something again.
There's there was a theory, the single origin theory, right? And I love that this was the case for this movie. But like the single origin theory where it's like one human, came out of Africa and then or like the singular human unit or whatever.
Sure.
Came out. And Alfonso Cuarón was reading about that and was like, yeah, I don't think that it would be like just by population, I don't think it would be like a white woman that continues on the human race. Like it would be way more prophetic and like interesting if it was Key like this. And so they invented the Key character in this, but it's like that makes it so much more of a special movie. I think it
makes it more profound. You're right. Yeah.
Because if it was just Julianne Moore, I'd be like, okay, so there's just more white people, like, you know what I mean? Like, but the fact that she's
don't worry, at least the human race will be hot. Like what?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
She's a former prostitute and like a refugee, and which the former prostitute part I think goes back to like the biblical side of it. But like the fact that she's a former like prostitute and refugee, and that line hits so hard when they're like they would just take away her baby and give it to some posh Black British lady, right?
Because it's exactly what they would do. Because it would fit the PR of the image that they're trying to put forward. And then also when it's like, well, who's the father? And like the answer to that is like chilling, but also like very much grounded in reality as well. Like it doesn't matter who the father is.
But I do like the letter. She's like, oh, I'm a virgin, and then she's like,
yeah,
oh,
and he's like, just playing with you, yeah.
I do also think that it would creative to have Julianne Moore's character be less important because you think she's going to be with you the entire story. Then you have Julianne Moore for just two. Oh, they did. So when she dies, it is. Yeah. You do not see that coming.
Like
it's a total. Yeah, it's a total Hill Street Blues syndrome, right? Like you just like you don't like it raises the stakes in a way that like makes you feel like what anything could happen at this point. Like I don't even know what's happening right now. Like if that's because especially with the whole like ping pong back and forth, which is a very funny thing where it's like because you're like, what is this a sex thing? What are they doing? And it's like, oh no, it's just they blow the ping pong ball into each other's mouths. Crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a small little human.
It was kind of a sex thing though too.
It looks like there probably would be a sex thing involved. But it's a fun it like in a very tense very grounded, tense setup to an action scene. It provides a moment of levity and a moment of humanity where you actually get to see them interacting with each other in a way that shows these years of history that they have. That isn't just like hearing about how they used to be a thing and before the kid died and blah, 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 yada. You just get everything you need to know between these two actors like doing something really profound and silly together at a time that like you wouldn't think there would be anything silly going on.
Yeah, well, and you get the pictures of them together. That Jasper's, which I love Michael Caine as Jasper. Like he's got to be like one of the greatest characters.
Michael Caine.
Bad wig aside.
The wig isn't great.
The pictures of them together, and then the fact that he's never like, oh, that used to be my wife. Like you know what I mean? You get the backstory from other characters. You get the backstory from what she's told. So you get like this picture painted for you of their relationship, but it's not told through like somebody being like, that was my wife. Like, like you get the story told to you non-sequentially through like all these different, characters telling you things and why does she trust him? And then you're thrown into, oh, she just trusts this guy before you know that that they used to be married. It's like, oh well, she trusts him because they used to be married, and he actually is highly empathetic, and he has shut down because of the extreme amount of loss. But like he's still, it's not like he's completely he's completely unprepared for this, but it's not like there's a bunch of reasons why he would be more trustworthy than the people that literally like coup Julian, like because of course she doesn't trust them, like
because it's the opposite of something like the Phantom Menace, where they're constantly telling you how to feel. Well, yeah, but apparently the youngins think that movie's just fine, and that makes me mad. But like, what I'm specifically talking about is like just telling rather than showing, telling you how you should feel, telling you about this one and that one and what they're up to, rather than just showing it. Which even as pulpy as it is, the original Star Wars were very good at like showing, and then there'd be some telling, but okay, that's all you're gonna get. Then we're gonna show you the rest. And there was a real trend, unfortunately, especially in sci-fi, towards just, okay, we need to like lay it all on the table somehow, that like this is what it is, and it doesn't work usually. It's rare.
Yeah.
Look at Dune. Look at like what Lynch tried to do with Dune.
I just don't think he got.
I don't think he got it either. But like, I think he was just white knuckling his way through it.
This book is called Dune. I am going to turn it into a movie. But
Happy 40th anniversary, by the way.
Oh yeah, I love that video of
I love Kyle MacLachlan. He's so baby girl.
I think that you get these strange exposition dumps that you realize later on are just world building. Like he's talking about like the reclaimers versus the religious.
But it's a conversation. Like it isn't like, hi, my name is Explainer Al, and I'm going to tell you about why we're in the situation we're in. No, it's just like he's complaining about the thing, and there's over there, and then like with the context of what you're given in the movie, you're able to figure out certain things. Like, that's because okay. Okay, the statue with the prosthetic, right? Like that kind of thing of like, oh, this is you don't even care about this.
Yeah,
like this doesn't matter to you at all. And this is, again, the distinction between the haves and the have-nots, right? Like, yeah, and these other folks, they were in literal pens, and you're sitting here with a prosthetic leg on this statue. Okay.
And but like the whole conversation, right, about these religious sects, like as he's going into the lair of the Crimson King, you see those like proclaimers or whatever, like there's the street preacher, and he's yelling at the crowd, and it's just like another detail on another detail on another detail of like layers of just this world that you're kind of receiving that is literally our world, but just worse in every possible way, and then no one's having kids, which I don't think that's too much of an apocalypse personally.
So everything like our world, but then a little better.
Our world, but quieter. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's a line where she's like, "You'd never understand what a world is like without children in the sound of children in the playgrounds." And I was like,
peaceful.
Okay, so better.
Threaten me with a good time. Go ahead.
I'd rather hear kittens purr.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it seems like you got on lockdown with these pets. So
yeah,
I don't know. Great pet work here. Also love that that our man doesn't have a single one come to harm. Plenty of humans get it, but like that's.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, the one time that an animal dies is in a humane way, right? Because they would have shot that dog dead, and he ends up euthanizing his wife and dog, but they would go so peacefully because it's quietus, and you just resolve it. And with that, the quietus thing even hits really hard right now because of the Canadian medical assistance in dying. That all of a sudden they're like, hey, homeless people and mentally ill people, if you want to get in on this too, we're not pushing, but like you know what I mean. That same thing as we feel like and it's not even necessarily like a true fact, but as we feel like our resources are depleted, right? Like, and in these intensive ways that we've kind of come up with currency and like wealth for certain, like as we've decided that our resources are depleted, it's like the refugees, immigrants, people in your society that are not as the society doesn't view as productively as they would view, although in America illegal immigrants are probably more productive than the average American citizen, but
they are
right, like in our
literally because the state of New Jersey, all the illegal immigrants who were working went on strike, and all businesses had to close for one day.
Yeah, but like still, like what I'm saying is the people that our society doesn't view as worthy of life, and like.
So they're trying to make poor people kill themselves because they're a burden on society. It would be better that way. We've seen that in sci-fi before. Did you hear that the suicide pods that they're creating are malfunctioning, and the very first person to test them did not successfully die? They may have been strangled by the person using the pod to make it look like they actually did in fact die. So even within this technology of saying that it's going to be really like safe and comfortable and just peaceful and respectful and like a great way to go with your dignity, it's not. Some guy had to choke you to death. Like, man, what a dystopian we live in.
like that because it has that commercial. It's like the medication commercial where you see the guy like get up and he like walks away, just fades away peacefully and quietly,
Well,
and it's so just and the reality of it is like no, it's nothing like that.
Well, you see that Clive Owens saying as he's looking at the instructions for the suicide kit, it says, "What will I do? Is there enough medicine to actually kill me? Is there a chance it might not kill me?" Like they knew then that this was not a reliable way. Even with sodium barbital, though, is the way that we kill people in prison. It's not as cruelty-free as we would like it to be.
No.
Or say that it is.
I mean, shit, it's bad. I mean, it's like, I watched my cat Frankie get put down.
Yeah.
And it's, they give him a drug that like helps like numb like the muscles and all that, relaxes him. And then they give him like one other injection that just stops his breathing completely.
Yeah,
no pain whatsoever. Like I'm like,
I've been through that a couple times, and it's
yeah. When it goes well, it's not so bad. But I've heard cases of prisoners where it does not go as intended, and it is quite a horrific way to see how they've died.
It's crazy how a lot of people think, it's just like 2 injections and they're good. I'm like, no, because they're still slowly dying. It's not a quick death. I mean, getting shot in the head is a quick death, probably, but like. It's
because people want because it somehow is easier for people to reconcile and like, oh well, it was painless and like whatever and this and that. It's like, well, you're still dying to be clear, so it's not like it's still never going to be like painless and also the idea of, well, first of all, the government should be the business of executing people. Period.
Yeah.
Full stop. Ever.
Or encouraging people who have less resources to like, it would be better for everyone if you didn't homeless people exist, as Forrest was saying, that social pressure that's being put by the government is immoral. Definitely. I did want to say somebody had been talking about strawberry cough. Just to let people know that is not
real, right?
Why it is called strawberry cough, created by Jason Cushman. It is called strawberry cough because it is made of strawberry field as one of the parents and haze as the other parent. It tastes like weed. It smells like strawberry. And then it makes you cough because it is very potent and has a harsh kind of characteristic about it. But you do not cough strawberries. That's cute. No.
Well, you kind of get
you smell it and you,
but like Clive Owens cough, and then Jasper's just like, you taste that? And he's like, no, it tastes like weed. Like,
weed, It's yeah.
So, but yeah, back real quickly to public executions. Yeah, I mean, certainly the dystopian thing is like there's societal pressure to, again, you call it like a class culling, you get like a race culling for like undesirable, so on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea being that you're in so bleak of a position that this is even something that you would consider, then like, okay, well, at that point, that's when you like, you just say, well, everything's terrible, right? It's really easy to take an easy way out. And which is, again, it comes back to the capitalism of it all, which is very much on point here.
Yeah.
Like, it's very much, without beating you over the head. Like, if it beats you over the head with it, it would be a lesser movie. But I think it's done very well. Like, you just know that that's what kind of world this is.
Yeah, and another thing too is like, with birth rates and all that, like we noticed that for a while there, teen pregnancy rates were going down because people were using condoms, people were using birth control, and abortion was not as restricted. But now it's like women are dying in Texas because they can't get their topical pregnancies removed and all that. So it's like, it's like a very like similar like parallel almost. It's like they want to increase the birth rates.
Things start getting real dicey the second any political person starts talking about birth rates, right? Like, because the implication of any conversation about birth rates, it's not humanity's birth rate is going down, it's the wrong people are breeding, and that happens very, very quickly in any of these conversations. And it's like, okay, so like whose birth rate? Because we went around, a lot of colonies that both America and Britain had. Forced sterilizations happened because they decided that the people couldn't keep up the population that they want. So the second you start talking about populations and birth rates, you get into that fascist territory really quickly, which is why this movie becomes so like interesting. Instead of having it kind of being just like this British society, to add the whole layer of refugees and immigrants and who is kind of quote unquote deserving of life or who is deserving of normal life, when the normal life is shitty. Like your normal life walking around this, London movie is terrible, but it's still you still have to make it so that somebody is
I mean,
other within the society, right?
Look at fucking Elon Musk. He believes that he is the epitome of man and wants to produce as many offsprings as possible, just like his dad did. And I'm like, dude, no, your father hates you too.
The thing is, he's from apartheid South Africa. The end of apartheid, maybe, but like that's what I'm saying about like the concept.
I don't mean to be an asshole. Can we not talk about that fucking guy, please? Thank you. And just talk about this movie.
Like, the concept of birth rates gets into fascist territory very quickly. Yeah. And populations, right? Like ethnic cleansing and what population deserves to be where, who deserves to be where, who deserves to have a certain style. Like
was that a strawberry cough, Conan?
It was. It was a strawberry cough button. Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think but these are ideas that are just much more. Again, they're in the culture now.
Mainstream.
As mainstream, whether you agree with them or not, doesn't mean they're being discussed, right? Great, because this is what we're doing is this space exploration. Because when you have people that are reactionaries, what they want to do is go back to some imagined earlier time where things were better for them specifically. There's no equality with it. So what's the natural extension of that? Well, when things get bad, someone's got to be the whipping boy.
Yeah.
Right.
And in this, I like that there's the implication, like. It's like, who did the bombing? It's like, is it the state? Is it the fishes? Which is I do like the idea that like the fishes, an English cod is like a natural, like a English born person, and then there's different levels of fish. I wish we could find out more about that. But I like
that
this.
Is a strange English fish.
Yeah. But is it Islamic?
I'm wrong.
Like, is it Muslims in this society?
Well, and a lesser movie spent 20 minutes on that, and they'd be like, we don't care about that. Let's just get on with the story, please.
I cheered for like the uprising though. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I was like, Allah Akbar, your way through the.
But that's interesting though, because again, likewise, but when you think about what's happening and what's at stake, it almost doesn't matter. Why it matters why they're fighting, but it almost doesn't matter why they're fighting because everybody is so wrapped up with what they're doing for good reasons. There's a lot of injustice being done that this thing that is an actual miracle, again, like the book really lays into the biblical part of it, but it's something as like the potential salvation of humanity. Does humanity deserve to be salvationed? Maybe, maybe not. It is this crossfire that is like I for a long time called it PTSD inducing. Because that whole thing. I know people that actually, did go out to Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff. Like, I can't watch that movie.
Yeah. I mean,
they'll be able to watch like actual like Saving Private Ryan or whatever. Or, maybe that's a bad example, but like actual war movies. And it's not a big deal. But like, I can't watch that.
That's fascinating because I know a few people that I'm like friends with that are. I wonder how they would react to this movie. I mean. I think
there's something about the fast moving style and the fact it's all one long shot, so it's very, very in a way that's immersive and like KT was saying, like video game like it's for modern video games now, but wasn't at the time
as a VR experience. You're like, no, I don't want to go back.
Zombie apocalypse, let's go.
But that's the thing though. It's not like it's not the zombie apocalypse. It's too raw and real and that like it's this super immersive.
It's the natural extension of Brexit.
Yeah,
not that far distant future.
Yeah.
Well, they had the thing.
Thanks, Nigel Farage.
They had the thing in England recently where this is a large part because of Twitter too. They found out that somebody got stabbed in a situation and they automatically decided that it was an Islamic illegal immigrant, and then all of a sudden there was a fucking race riot in the middle of Britain, northern Britain, and just this year. And it's like because we talked about this in 2021 where things felt a little less bleak, like still bleak, but a little less bleak. And I feel like this movie and the topic of mass migration and the whole the basically an intifada happening in the all of those things feel like they hit way different and way darker, I guess, this time for me than watching this even in 2021. it's like, fuck, this is bleak. Like,
yes, it's too close to home now.
and there's a miracle of, you know, she manages to get through the entire detention center and finally gets to the boat. I mean, obviously, like, we talked about this the first episode we've done this. Like, who knows what happens once the boat gets there, and who knows what, you know, like, that's not that that's an important thing, but like, you know, like the brief moment of hope at the end, though, you still get that brief moment of hope. But just as easily, you could see a situation where both her and the baby get, you know, either they blow up the place that everyone's hiding in that
the boat gets sunk, like whatever, a million things. Well, and that's what Cuarón said, that like he wanted a movie that, as like the final end titles were rolling, would be like the beginning of the story. And I think that's so cool. And it's so cool because if you think about it, it's like, well, we don't know what that story afterwards is.
Yeah.
But like, that's a good beginning.
And you have to ask yourself, like, if you're having a hopeful thought about it, the hope is that she is the first of many to be able to have babies again, which means that they need to dissect her and figure out why she can have babies, to figure out how they can make other people have babies. At best, we're hoping for her to be heavily studied, like a petri dish, like Tetsu, like Akira, kind of.
Yeah,
right. It all ties together this month. Yeah, absolutely.
You find out Akira is actually like a woman that they dissected.
A pregnant black woman? What?
They made Akira woke.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's so many.
It's the only allowable version of that hack joke, by the way. But anyway,
there's so many possibilities of what happens after that, right? Like, it's and most of them aren't good. Definitely,
it's a choose your own adventure kind of ending. Absolutely, agreed. I absolutely, and that's and I'm look, I love ambiguity for the right kind of story. If it's earned, if the process of getting there is a worthwhile story, I generally speaking will come off on the hopeful side. I'll be like, well, you know, I think it's going to be all right.
I think she will get dissected.
But it's going to be humanely. Don't worry. We're going to means test it.
Put her under.
It's almost like in the same way that, you know, we're talking about everything being biblical, right? Like, it's almost like the creation myth. Like, you could see a future society telling the story, and Theo being like the martyr to the cause of this thing because he gets gunned down, and then like you could almost see this as like you're reading the next, you know, iteration of Human's Bible, and it's like, here's the story of what happened, and then all the soldiers put their, like, I don't know, it reads in that way too, and I think that's why it feels so universal. In that sense, like, well,
think about. And again, it was only you and I on this episode, Forrest. But think about like what Gary was doing with Book of Eli, right? Of like that ends in that same sort of way of like, all right, so this book, by the way, the book is the Bible. By the way, Gary is not like a like heavy Christian dude or anything along those lines. He was using it as a narrative element. It was very misunderstood. But like they did like, okay, this book that, you know, could provide like hope for people, but often it was used as a cudgel for power and gain and the worst elements of humanity. Be like, well, it leaves you to think about. I interrupted myself. Democrats love means testing stuff too, by the way. That's nothing. Democrats have never met a mean thing. They would just rather not to means test. But I think that allows you to fill in. It allows respect to the viewer to be able to extrapolate their own conclusion of where that story might go, which I think is actually better than a really defined ending for something that's raising big questions. Because if you're raising big questions, you should come away with it and be like, I'm asking these questions, I'm thinking about it, maybe I'm having a different answer Tuesday than I had on Monday, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, those are some of the movies I tend to come back to the most.
This is a funny, the comment about Mark Fisher using this in capitalist realism. We definitely talked about that in the first episode of this.
Oh my God.
And I literally read the passage, I think, of capitalist realism when we talk about this. But I think
all we talked about.
I think it's interesting that Alfonso Cuarón, in writing the script, right? Like, this is something that I haven't really heard that much about with screenwriters or directors. He didn't just go into this world thinking about like visuals or thinking about, you know, storytelling. He actually philosophically went down a rabbit hole of like Zizek and like a bunch of different like leftist and left of center kind of authors and actually thought of like a philosophy in his mind that he wanted to throw out there. And that's
why he can get away with not reading the book.
Yeah,
it's because he was being deeply thoughtful about it. It wasn't just like he wasn't just pulling a Lindhoff.
I don't need to read the book.
The fucking Game of Thrones guys. Oh, we know what this is. I'm like, do you though? Do you really? Mm-hmm. Are you sure about that? Are you positive? Yeah, because it's again, hacks think that they can just like go off the dome on it. I'm like, well, but why don't you write something instead?
The thing that I find incredible about it is Timothy Sexton, his writing partner, did in fact read the book and would just bounce ideas from the book off of him.
Right, because again, that's a good point. So it's not that like the source material isn't involved at all. You have somebody in the circle who knows it, who can like tie things in a way that is cool, and even if there's changes, it's like, okay, this makes sense for this story rather than this. Like books and movies are not the same thing. Spoiler alert, everybody. And like some things in books just don't work as movies. Period. And like people need to get over it. Like it's like this.
And
it has to be changes.
Make them into miniseries is on HBO, like Harry Potter again.
But that's what. So if Children of Men was made today, that's what it would be. It'd be some insufferable like 8-part streaming series, and it would be like 2 episodes too long, like everything else.
Yeah. But there's like things are like the chronology of things, right? Like also something that works in like the late 90s wasn't going to work in the early 2000s necessarily. Or because the book is very theme heavy. Those themes are not necessarily going to translate the same way. Like there was a crazy shift of everything between those 2 decades.
You're right. And what was ripped from the headlines when this movie came out has become our reality and like history now, which is crazy, but like science fiction as a narrative function, like when it does it well, it'll do those kinds of things, right? Like how many movies have we talked about where like they basically predicted FaceTime?
Yep.
And it's like, oh, this is like 1960 or 1970 or whatever, you know, like and like that came around eventually, but it wasn't necessarily the way that people predicted it. Nobody predicted Bounty Bear though. Bounty Bear was not a thing that it came in reality. But I think that this is I don't know. I mean, like I feel like I'm dominating the conversation. I think KT, I know you're a big fan of this of Children of Men, and you're a big fan of getting something behind you. I mean, what do you think? I mean, as far as like, you know, we talked a lot about that when we did Annihilation, right? Like the difference, like, you know, book to the movie, et cetera, which is superior, which works better. I consider this movie a masterpiece, but I'd be interested in what both you and Kristina have to say about it.
I have a lot of problem with homage that doesn't get credited, as you can tell from my whole Satoshi Kon issue. So I really firmly believe that, like, you can say credit to original writer, this is a different story. I don't think you should call things the same thing if they're not the same thing. So like when they did Total Recall and it was the remake, it's a fine enough story that I would say, but it's not the original, and that pisses people off. With due respect, I understand, and I get pissed off too. So, you know, if the book is called Children of Men, I don't know, call this Children of the World. Like, just give it a different title. It's in that world, it's in that thing. We all know that, but it isn't actually that. And it just, I feel like that satisfies both the reader who wants to literally see what they read, because sometimes we do get that and people say, wow, this was the fidelity of this story to the original work was groundbreakingly beautiful. You can see that in the recent movie with Tom Hanks, whether you like it or not, it has incredible fidelity to the source material.
Right.
So, you know, you can just sidestep that, just call it something else, and then it is what it is, because it is great in and of its own right, but then it gets bogged down by being told it doesn't fit these
by like pedantic arguments or whatever. But
I'm real quick, I am not trying to snap correct you. The book of Total Recall is We Can Remember It For You Wholesale.
I mean to say Total Recall, the original movie Total Recall, because they were trying to remake Total Recall. So if you're remaking the movie Total Recall, don't call it Total Recall. Call it
something different. Yeah,
Journey to Mars.
Absolutely.
Which is why Total Recall.
Or was it Get Your Ass to Mars? Yeah.
Of the Philip K. Dick story, they knew enough to be like,
call it Complete Recollection.
And I think we talked about we
don't want to get sued.
when we talked about Blade Runner, like the name of the book is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and the whole concept of like the mechanical animals and the mercerism and all that was dropped It's bare, and it's a little bit there in the story, but it's a big enough change that it should be called something different.
Well, I mean, look at The Shining. The Stevie mentioned The Shining.
That's right.
I mean,
yeah.
And when they did Dr. Sleep, which phenomenal film, they figured out a way to combine the movie and King's original novel together, because a lot of people remember the movie more than what was in the novel. So it's like, because Stephen King hated that adaptation for some reason. Then he tried doing his own, and it didn't work out.
With the guy from Wings, Rebecca De Mornay is fantastic in that, by the way. And the guy from Wings is good as well.
The
But
reason why he's cocaine.
But it's not but it's not Jack Nicholson, right? We think of the definitive Jack Nicholson before, because that's one of the don't try to do that role. And if you're gonna do it, do like what Mads Mikkelsen did with Hannibal. And don't do an Anthony Hopkins. Take the character a totally different direction. Anyway, go ahead.
I wish
in Dr. Sleep, the kid from E.T. played Jack Nicholson in Dr. Sleep. I was like, wait, what? And he did it his own way.
Yeah, I wonder if today that's what would happen with Children of Men, right? Like, I wonder if today, because I feel like we're living in like the age of like this internet culture now, and that was starting in 2006. But they had bought you buy the rights to something as a studio, and then the studio decides they want it to make the studio decides they want to make it, and then they find a director and they shop it that way, rather than somebody saying, "Hey, I really like the source material for something, and I want to make it into a movie." So they shopped around for 5 years until they found Alfonso Cuarón. And I wonder if today's version of that, right, like where it's either streaming services or HBO or something like that, where number one, they're way more, I think, lawsuit conscious, and number two, they're way more these bigger swings or something, right? Like, you don't necessarily need to be like, oh, this is adapted from this thing, and that's like well,
it's like they want to put the Glass Onion has to be called a Knives Out story and Cuarón underneath. Yeah. Because they want that backup. We know that this isn't The Shining, but you guys like The Shining, right? So this is The Shining, okay? Come on, watch it again.
Shining.
I wish that there was something like that where music has like a variation on a theme, where even an artist can have like a whole opus, and it's all within the same sort of thematic world, but they're totally different vibes, totally different songs, and so that we could just understand like this isn't a remake; it's a variation on the theme of the original piece.
Yeah, too much sampling going on around here.
Well, and there's Negative Land. There's the whole like letter U numeral 2 thing. Great book about that, and what is and is not fair use. When is it P. Diddy and when is it transformative?
Sting has to pay him. Diddy has to pay Sting $15,000 every freaking day for the rest of his life.
Yep. Exactly.
I just remembered this is such a good comment with the shinning in the Simpsons.
I knew that's whenever I say, "Do you want to get sued?" I am quoting that line. That is what I am quoting.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that this movie stands on its own so well. I think it's one of the most perfect movies that we've like talked about. Like, there's just so much to it that's like. You could watch it 10 times and notice something different.
I've been trying.
Yeah.
Because there's depth to it, right? There's depth to it. There's nuance. There's things to pick up on. Again, like things as simple as the newspapers. Like every part of this world is like right there, and it's fascinating how it all came together in a way that's like the attention to detail. Like when I found out that he didn't actually read the book, I'm like, huh. Wow, that's surprising. But then it made sense that okay, somebody close in the circle did though, and so because it doesn't seem like I gotta be real careful about what I say. There's some creators that it feels like maybe I should have though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, David Lynch and Dune, right? Like,
I love Lynch, but he probably should have read the book.
Yeah. But so this is the clip that I wanted to throw up.
Sure.
Wait, hold on. There's the so it was an accident that
limited close-ups.
So this, I'm pretty sure this is the clip. So it was an accident that blood gets splattered on the camera.
I'm so glad you're gonna pull this clip because I wanted to make sure that we spent a good amount of time talking about that scene, which is incredible. So this is great. Please, yes, let's
not that many close-ups to give the same weight to the character as to the background.
If you go into a close-up, you're giving more predominance to your character from your background. And here I wanted the balance, and in many ways, to get the character just blend into the background. Character is as important as social context. So you don't do close-ups because you don't want to favor character versus context. So you keep kind of a distance so character blends with environment. And then you don't do editing to seek for an effect. What you try to do is to create a moment of truthfulness in which the camera is there just to register that moment of truthfulness. I can choreograph to the inch every single moment, but once that you're rolling camera, everything falls in the shoulders of your actor because things are going to go wrong. And it's how he reacts with things going wrong that create the moment of truthfulness. And there are so many elements. You have explosions, you have extras, you have stunts, you have tanks. So something's going to go out of sync. And it was, all these cues were about when do you release the tank so arrives in the perfect moment and then explodes this entrance of this building in just the time that Clive Owens is about to enter the building. We prepped the shot like for 12 days and then we shot for 2 days, but there was only one take that was complete. That was the last chance I had to do that scene because we were losing the location and the sun was fading and suddenly blood spilling into the lens. That was completely not designed. Actually, in the moment in which the blood is spilling into the lens, I yelled cut, but there was an explosion so nobody heard me. And I realized that if they had heard me and they have cut, I was not going to be able to shoot the scene. So I just let it go. And at the end of the scene, Clive Owens and Emmanuel Lubezki, cinematographer, they were so excited. And I said, yes, guys, but there was blood in the lens. And the two of them, they turned at me and said, but that was the miracle. And then I realized it was true. It was about embracing those accidents, embracing those things that I could have never designed originally.
In big action sequences, we will rehearse for a very long time before shooting because an awful lot of elements have to come together. And then Alfonso has been very brave and gone for it in a one take. So the shot is constantly developing and there's an awful lot of action within it. But for you to feel like you're involved, Alfonso wants to keep the takes running as long as possible. You see it very much through Theo's perspective, and rather than being very sort of manipulative and showing you all the elements and cutting backwards and forwards, he's trying to get a very visceral feel, throw Theo into the middle of it all, see the chaos, feel the chaos around him.
It was an amazing pressure for Clive because there was no one scene that he was not in. There was not one shot that he would just go and rest because we were doing a reverse where he was not in or whatever. He was in every single moment of the whole thing.
We laughed a lot, believe it or not. I mean, it was a tough, grueling shoot and the environments were pretty awful, but there was also a lot of humor. He's a very lively, spirited guy, Alfonso, and it's not, often though, when you see those films, you think, oh, it must have been so heavy, and it isn't the case. There was a lot of humor as well.
You know what it is particularly with actors, it's about engaging them. And truly the matter is that these actors were protecting me. Maybe they were keeping the things, they think I was keeping the things light, but because they didn't realize that they were actually protecting me. All the time they were digging into the material and trying to get the best. I consider my actors co-writers of this screenplay. I think that each one of them transformed completely their dialogues. And that's something I will be eternally grateful with them. I like to prep very thoroughly, and then when I'm in the set to forget the preparation, and as if you start from scratch. Usually I improvise a lot with the actors. I like that, I encourage that. I don't force it, because for some actors it's very uncomfortable. So I try to have a screenplay that is sound enough so they can, they have the ground. The falling net, if you don't find anything, but I like more and more, I like to shoot like that, to shoot in a way in which improvisation can happen easily, because that's part of the nature of one-shot deals. That everything falls in the actors, and so the actors are free to change things if they make sense in the moment. And one take should be absolutely different than the next one, and that's part of the joy of it.
That's how I get ready for the show. By the way, I do a lot of prep, and then once I am in production, I completely forget all the prep.
Yeah.
Start from ground one. That sequence incredible though, and the fact
it's amazing.
And the fact that blood is just splattered on the screen, like you almost don't notice it the first time you watch it. Like in a way, like I mean, your brain obviously receives that as a thing, but like as like blood just splattered on the lens, like you get that, but it's almost subconscious and like that level of chaos. And that level of chaos being like something that would be in a documentary, right? Like, because you only get one take doing one of those BBC documentaries. I think of Adam Curtis doing hypernormalization, and there was this clip that he used from a BBC documentary where they were in, I think it was Lebanon, but they were in, they were running down the thing, and then all of a sudden someone exploded in front of the camera guy, and you got this like, and the guy just kept rolling as people were just like gunned down in front of him, and that's what that sequence reminds me of. It's like very, very matter of fact, very like neutral kind of BBC. Almost.
It's not even drawing attention to it, which is one of the reasons why. I mean, that's up there with like the hallway sequence in Old Boy, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Fury Road, like some of the best action sequences of all time, in my opinion. This sequence is right among them.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was yelling cut, he was like yelling cut, nobody could hear him because it was so loud because everything was exploding, which
cut,
amazing.
Please, cut. And then
It's funny that like people would think that they would notice the blood. There's so many scenes in our lives. Like the famous one I can think of is the one from Abyss, where literally a hand from the camera guy comes in front with a cloth, wipes the glass, and they just left it in because it was such an emotional scene where he's about to put the helmet on and to go into and you don't even fucking notice. You have to freeze frame it to see it, but it's egregious.
Yeah.
You posted that, and I had never noticed that before. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, there's totally a dude wiping the camera.
But your brain perceives these things, right? Like your brain perceives these things even if consciously you're not receiving them. And I think
it just lets it go.
Yeah.
Well, and in that scene, you're with them. Like isn't you're watching them, it feels as if you are with them, and you are also ducking behind things because of the firefight, and that it's such a different thing than like Enter the Dragon. Amazing, Bruce Lee's kicking everybody's ass and it's awesome, but like it's not that. This is if there's anything, it's the Raid maybe. Right, mm-hmm. Like where, like, and by extension, I guess Dread a little bit, where you're just, again, it's attributed to video games now, but it's immersive in a way with action that you just don't get that in other media. Usually, you don't. I shouldn't say you don't get that at all with other media, but it's rare to see it like this.
Yeah,
but the line of like. Yes, we do feel point of view in it. We do get the blood on our face, but if it sticks on the camera, that becomes too much of a reminder that there's a camera there, and that could totally break the fourth wall, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's so like there's stuff flying everywhere. It just makes you feel like it's real. It makes you feel like that stuff's actually happening.
And if it was consciously done, I think your brain would receive it. Like your brain can sense intention, I think, in a weird way when it comes to art.
Right.
It's like if it was like, oh, let me daintily splash a little bit of blood on the camera.
Yeah,
your brain
that would have been lame.
Oh, he daintily splashed a little bit of blood on the camera. But the fact that it just hits. Like he's
so many horror movies do that. It's just hack stuff, and it's like, okay, we get it.
The fact that he's hiding, and then you could literally see the moment. Like after watching that, I literally went back. You could see the moment where blood hits, and it's because the guy in front of him blows up because they like shoot him so many fucking times, and he's in the trailer, and then all of a sudden there's a splatter of blood on the camera, and it's like, yeah, your brain definitely picks that up. I do want to say one other thing about the sequence that I never really thought about until somebody commented, but at one point Theo's wearing flip-flops for 90% of it. Of the movie, and at one point the flip flop breaks, and he's like, fuck, and so he throws the flip flop away.
As what you get? God damn it!
And it was right after the part where he just and people love posting this on YouTube. People love posting when he just brains Sid, the fucking guy, in one shot. He takes like a radiator or something, he just hits him in the head. So right after that, his flip flop breaks. So he brains the guy. Fuck, my flip flop. Throws the flip flop, and then the guy that ends up getting gunned down in front of him, that's like the Human Project is real, no, like that guy in like the Leninist apartment upstairs or whatever, like that guy gives him a pair of shoes, and then he has shoes for the rest of it. He like levels up.
Like just like a video game, you got it off of the corpse of that other guy. But it is, I do find myself constantly like, I don't know if I could wear flip flops just in case, because we're so close to an apocalypse. It could be any second. People stop wearing flip flops.
Yeah, because he doesn't expect to be in the middle of that.
Yeah. Keep those shoes sensible.
Yeah. There's a sort of like almost Die Hard quality about it. Like he is going to continue to walk in those broken foot. We've seen that kind of hero before, as well as the like, oh, we've all been there. Flip flops fucking suck. He's not prepared. That's how I would be.
Yeah. Don't run in them.
If you're gardening, it's a sensible choice. Otherwise, like, I don't know. Come on.
If you're by the beach, by the pool, you know.
Yeah, there's a time, there's a place, and it's usually not when there's action happening.
Combat boots zipped up even by the beach. Ever vigilant.
I'm rocking a bikini and combat boots all the time. Thank you. Yeah, this sequence is what I very much was surprising nobody. An evangelist for this movie. I was like, just anybody I could get, like, come see this movie with me. You're gonna love it. And that's one of the things I would tell people. Would be like, look, there's this action sequence that you're not even gonna believe it, like how crazy it is. Like, it's not like you should go to the movie for that, but I'm telling you, you're gonna be changed on the other end of it. And every time I bring something, they were like, wow, you're right, that was amazing. That was like really, like, I felt like we were like in combat. You know, and there's a difference between that and like, I love, you know, Eastern Promises, great. The action in that, so good, but I never felt like I was in physical danger. I was just like,
well, you're in combat,
jacked up.
That has literally no business being in combat. He's like, didn't even bring the proper footwear. Like,
right,
you're in combat as a guy who's
bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Not only are you in combat, because I feel like a lot of movies, like, you're in combat as a soldier. You're like, oh, I got this gun. Like, I feel like I'm going along with this guy that has a gun. He does not have a gun. He does not have proper footwear. He does not have a helmet. He does not have
very ill-equipped for what he's doing. Yeah. And again, and we're coming from a perspective of like any violence done is all from a defensive stance from people that are being aggressive towards him or her, which is not something I picked up first time I saw it, but like later on, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's what the case is." Just from the comments, real quick before we move on, the happy accent of the blood in this movie reminds me of that old story of that samurai film where the blood came out like a geyser. Both of those moments changed the game. Agreed. Because think of, and the ultimate culmination of that is like, you know, the Evil Dead, Dead Alive, and you know, Abigail's and like the progeny of that, where like just everybody's just a pressurized sack of blood that you poke and then it shoots out. But also, it happens one time, and then it's like, oh, that's cool. How can we do that? Right? It's like one time can be an accident, and you know, 2 times a written part.
I want to deal with children of men, mate. How do we do it?
Jason Statham, children of men. That would not work at all, but it would be hilarious. That would be hilarious. Have to be a bit for sure.
The way to introduce Jason Statham into this world is that he's the scientist who's on the boat when the boat picks her up.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
Jason Statham as a scientist. Amazing.
And he's like, well, the Meg. He's literally a scientist with a submarine.
Is he really? I didn't watch that. It looked terrible.
I don't know. It's my brother and my favorite movie because it was just so bad that we were cheering in the theater, like, yeah, punch that shark in the face.
Does he punch a shark in the face?
He does.
I mean, of course he does. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Why even have in your movie if he's not going to punch the shark?
It's like a megalodon. It's like a megalodon, like one of those prehistoric sharks.
Punches
it's okay.
Shark in the face. He's also very good at swimming, so he swims right up to it and punches it.
Yeah, and then the shark's like, "Oh fuck, ow!"
Like, damn, that boy can hit. See, anybody coming for the serious film discussion about this Alfonso Cuarón masterwork and did not expect Meg content? Here you go. There it is. That's what we do here. Welcome to the show.
We're gonna need a bigger boat, mate.
I kind of have to figure that if you've seen Children of Men, you would need someone to tell you what happens in the Meg because you haven't seen the Meg. Those are those are like 2 circles. There's no Venn diagram there.
Venn diagram where there's no overlap. Yeah.
I'm the Venn diagram.
The circles are like these circles where they're like nowhere near each other.
I'm the Venn diagram of someone who enjoyed both the Meg and I'm the one guy. I'm the one guy.
You're the guy.
Yeah, so they just like the edges, they kind of kiss.
Yeah, exactly. Kristina, you have anything you want to add for that sequence or scene or anything before we move on?
Yeah, I love when blood gets splattered on camera lenses.
I can't see. There's blood on the camera lens.
It's like all of the rules of filmmaking say that shouldn't work, and it so works.
It's like, oopsie daisies.
Yeah, it's so awesome, and I just the fact that was an accident blows my mind. I was like, wow, that's like one of the great accidents of cinema. You know, fantastic. Letterboxd, of course, is a place for film lovers to talk at with and to each other about the films that they love, maybe the films that they didn't love, maybe the films that they talk about what was or was not an accident when they were shooting an action sequence. And of course, this is all a bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to have their say, not just Siskel's and Eberts of the world. Everyone gets to chime and opine about everything. Best done succinctly. Best done succinctly because these reviews are collected weekly for this bit where we put them on screen, read them, and react and or laugh with them, or sometimes at them. And these are the Letterboxd one-liners for Children of Men. Let's do it. But at least you can go to restaurants without screaming children, right?
True.
I hate to be the anti-natalist that I am, or whatever, like watching this and going, this doesn't seem as bad as you guys are making it out to me.
You're saying this like it's a bad thing, but have you ever been to a movie theater that had an actual child in it? Because it's not great. It's not great, folks.
Like why take all the art and put it in your house and declare yourself the Crimson King? Because it's cool. Like I don't know, you're not gonna be around.
You think it's
not gonna be around when you die. Like
just doing cool guy stuff, really. That's what I would say. Universal theme park ride, TM, but it's just Michael Caine's house from the movie, and you smoke weed on the couch for 6 hours.
Yes.
The first 20 minutes of this too feel especially not that bad, right? Like, you're like, at least you can hang out with Michael Caine.
Yeah, it sounds all right.
That's Mulberry Colf.
That's our old pal Slim there from 70mm and Letterboxd doing that one. So
yeah,
shout out Slim.
Once in a while we get a celebrity appearance in the.
Holy shit! I knew this was going to be crazy as soon as King Crimson started playing in the background.
Yeah.
Facts.
And he instantly like kind of shits on his cousin's party too. He's like, he's the Crimson King, and he's like, oh hey, how's it going? My mom had a little statue of the Michelangelo's David.
Yeah, it was in the bathroom. That's awesome. It's dismissive. I love it. Would rate 5 out of 5 if she really named her child Bazooka.
Dude, I laugh so hard every time at Froley, where she's like, I'm going to name the baby Froley. And he's like, you can't. It's the first child in 18 years. You can't name that child Froley. Like, yeah, you can't.
I don't understand the tag of tennis ball on this review, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
There's a lot of dogs.
DAWG dog.
If you throw a tennis ball, literally, almost everybody runs.
That's true. It's true. Bleak as hell. Many themes are involved.
Truer words never spoken.
Many themes are involved, indeed. 2 dreadheads in this movie, and both of them are white.
Remember
that discourse?
You know how this is it's British as fuck because the 2 guys with dreads are white, but like there's 2 black, like there's multiple characters that are black that are like main characters at the forefront of the movie, but they're like, we're not gonna make either of these people wear dreads. Like that wouldn't make any sense. It only makes sense if a white guy has dreads in this world.
Look, if you've ever been to a Lollapalooza, it makes sense. It's a sad reality of most of my generation. Living in late capitalism is watching an accurate dystopian movie about 2027 and 2024.
Yeah.
Then move past that one real quick. Love the vibe of pets meeting this guy and just going, hell yeah.
Like even kids, like their kittens climbing up him.
So
also,
good.
There's the whole scene where she reveals that she's pregnant, right? And that scene, like I wish I could just break down that scene because first he goes in and there's cows, like all the cows, and she's like, they cut off half the cow's titties with like when they're with, like, whatever, and they why not make a machine that goes for 8 titties, like, and her accent's great because her actual accent is like a posh British accent. That actress, her accent is great throughout this, and then so that already cracks me up, and then she goes to take off her shirt to show that her pregnant belly, but obviously you don't know that, and Theo doesn't know that. So his first thought was like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like thinking that she's trying to like sleep with him in exchange for taking her on this mission, and like and then it hits you, and the first thing he says is Jesus Christ, which like dry humor there, being like is practically the Messiah. Like, there's so much in that scene that I feel like shouldn't work that does. Like,
it's very well done.
Yeah.
The most heroic cowering in film history.
Yeah. Well, sometimes in a violent world, it takes more bravery to be non-violent.
Exactly.
And
So there
wear
you go.
flip-flops.
and additionally wear flip-flops. Those are Letterboxd one-liners for Children of Men, Redux. Please follow this show, Movie Night Extravaganza, at Movie Night Extra at our Letterboxd HQ account. You can find all of the movies that we cover listed there, along with bonus content, shorts, features, things along those lines. All kinds of great stuff.
Did we have the Letterboxd, the first version of this? I can't remember if we had the Letterboxd one-liners.
I don't think so. I think it was. I think it was pre. That's a good. When did I start that bit? It's definitely pre Kristina, and I don't remember when we started doing one-liners.
A lot of dudes on the panel about the world that was infertile.
Sure was. But follow at Movie Night Extra for all that stuff. England is literally like this now. At Always Flacco, Forrest, your host over there, he is on Letterboxd as well. Follow him for all the movies we cover in here, as well as lots more to see what he's up to over there. I am Last One to Die. Please turn out the lights at Conan Neutron. You can follow me for the highbrow, the midbrow, the populist fare. Criterion Challenge 2025 on deck, baby! And again, if you alert viewers and listeners of the show will know that my good friend KT Baldassaro is going to be doing that as well. So we are both going to be doing Criterion Challenge. Join us if you feel so inclined. It's a good time. It's a better time than you think it's going to be, is what I'll say. But yeah, follow me at Conan Neutron for all that good stuff. In the year 2027, Kristina, at Kristina, will probably log in something by Andrew Garfield or Cillian Murphy or like any of them. Or Florence Pugh. Maybe it's a movie that all of them are in together. Who knows? Like maybe
and Michael Caine, and he's smoking weed.
Michael Caine, still there, still smoking the weed, as it turns out.
Nosferatu one-liner.
That's gonna be good. That's gonna be good. I think there's gonna be some solid. I feel good about it. I feel really good about it. Mm-hmm. Follow her at Kristina for what she's logging. There's more than there used to be. So, and I mean that as a compliment. So
you're welcome, everyone.
Once every 3 months. No.
Well, exactly. It's got to be momentous if Kristina does it. KT Baldassaro at Movie Runtime. Key, calm, and carry on. And she, as mentioned, is doing the Criterion Challenge this year as well, which is great. It's my 5th one, and it's her first one. And we live streamed. That was this week. This week, we live streamed our picks. That is crazy. I have done a lot this week.
You know what I have to say about that?
What?
Wicked. Just like,
so she's doing the Criterion Challenge as well, but she's also doing great stuff with her show, What If I Don't Like It, as well as Movie Runtime, which is an ongoing concern. It's an ongoing. We're very concerned. We're very concerned about it.
Looking into it.
But she's doing all of it at Movie Runtime on Letterboxd. So please follow KT Baldassaro as well. We'll tell you all about it in the plugs, which is what we're going to do right now.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and then hit the bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. And we'd humbly request that you watch the video to the end, because it helps us with the algorithm and helps more film fans to discover the show. We're also monetized. If you want to get your chat questions definitely read on stream, you can always send us a super chat, which will help us keep the show going. Every cent helps. If you're watching on Twitch, you can gift us a free sub on Amazon Prime with your Prime membership, but getting subs on Twitch is always appreciated, and it helps to follow us on there as well. We also have an audio feed, which is available wherever you download podcasts, if you prefer to listen to podcasts rather than watch the stream. That's updated usually the same day we stream, but watching on YouTube and Twitch is the best way to get the show first, live as it happens. If you want to support us with a monthly donation and get access to all of our after parties forever, which go patron only after we do them, you can become a patron at patreon.com/movie night extra. Link is in the description for that. It really helps us keep the show going since we do have some expenses to make this happen. We also have a Discord community. Link is in the description for that. We sometimes watch movies we cover on there. We get into conversations about everything from film to TV shows to related podcasts, We even have a Discord channel for memes. It's really fun on there. You can find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Threads. You connect with us on all of those. Talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, we recently made a TikTok at Movie Night Extra where we're putting up short form clips from the episodes. Okay, passing this to Conan so he can tell you about his music and this week's Protonic Reversal. Conan, who's on Protonic this week?
I will tell you shortly, but before that, I'm going to reveal that I am wearing my Children of Men shirt.
Yeah, if you're a big fan of Children of Men, name 5 of their songs.
It also has the great phrase, woke up, felt like shit, went to work, felt like shit.
I think that was your final thought when we did the first version.
Oh, I think it was. I think you might be right. Yeah. So I made a special point of it's one of my favorite shirts and it's one of my favorite movies. So that's I made a special point of wearing that as my my non-Zazzy outfit. So there you go.
I liked their first album, but after that, I don't know. They kind of fell off.
McGraw says hi.
Oh, hello, McGraw.
Hi.
He's already getting so big. So is his brother.
Climbed up Theo's leg.
Exactly. It looks just like him, actually.
Yeah.
So Protonic Reversal, the Brant Bjork episode, Brant Bjork of Caius and whatnot. That episode's now up in the general feed, so you can peruse that if you would like to. It's very good. The Jamie Stillman episode, still patron only. Jamie Stillman with Earthquaker Devices, Harriet the Spy. I had the Kerosene 454 guys, Darren Zantek, who plays with Jay Robbins too, and Eric Deno. And if you're remotely interested in that band, that's a treasure trove. So that's a good episode. Those are both patron only. Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal, $1 a month for advance access for all that. Plenty of Secret Friend stuff happening. Nothing I can talk about right now, but soon in the beginning of the year. Also, a Caterwaul announcement first week of January. So that's exciting as well.
Oh yeah.
Kristina, what do you got? By the way, I'm cold now. Now I'm cold. I took off all my my zats. I'm like, oh, it's freezing down here. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, please.
So I'm going to be doing a stream with Democratic Socialists of America on Sunday.
Very good.
With a few other streamers, with some candidates. We're going to game and chat and chill. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. I'm in charge of hosting Block B.
I'm not sure who runs their Instagram, but I think it's the main. It might not be the main DSA account. Maybe it's the New York City one, but one of them follows our little clique of podcast friends, and I wish I knew who ran it because I think they follow literally the people we know, and it's like,
yeah.
So it might be someone we actually know then.
Yeah, or at least someone that's been in the vicinity of us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like a weirdly specific mix of people on Instagram too.
Yeah, and of course tomorrow. Well, I gotta work, but I still do Shadow Saturday. It's getting interesting. We're still in 1795. Don't know how long we'll be there, but it's
isn't it always 1795 really in our hearts?
Yeah, really. Also got a big Christmas Eve stream coming up on Christmas Eve, of course, and we're going to be doing all Christmas stuff. We're going to watch Ernest Saves Christmas. I'm going to read How the Grinch Stole Christmas. We're going to do Christmas trivia. It's the only time I'm celebrating Christmas because I did not decorate this year.
I think it needs more Christmas stuff. You should add some it needs more Christmas.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I got going on. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Sounds good. KT, what do you got?
Yep.
I have the upcoming episode where I will talk to my friend Lisa about finally getting to watch Back to the Future 2, having only ever watched 1 and 3. So that will be coming out, soon, just at the beginning of the next month. And, that's really it for right now. I'm trying to wind down. I got a lot of stuff to do. I got Italian Christmas coming up on Christmas Eve. So baking. I can't do about anything but baking.
Are you doing the 7 fishes?
Of course, every year. Yeah. We do way more than 7 fishes. Who are we kidding? There's always somebody who wants a fish that somebody else doesn't.
Yeah, they're like, I don't want anything. I want some bronzino. But
Scungili, she wants the herring. They want I want the calamari, so that's always there.
Whenever my uncle comes up, which isn't every year because he lives in sunny California in San Francisco, but whenever he comes to New York and flies out for Christmas, he does the 7 fishes, and then my grandma will freak out because she's like, because there'll be pans everywhere in her kitchen, and she's like, the kitchen's a mess, and like last year I think she had like
So
no, I was gonna say last year she had like I think she had a full meltdown. She's like, oh, there's so many pans. It's like, yeah, because it's 7 fishes. They all have to be cooked separately. Like,
yeah, we're trying to divide it amongst everybody so that people will arrive with everything, so that nobody gets super burdened. Because my parents usually did all the fishes themselves, and you would just show up. But I'm doing like the struffoli and service, a couple of different other things. And I'll be bringing the antipasta. So
you gotta tell them. You gotta tell them that somebody in your family sleeps with the fishes. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my god, it's gonna be all of us with the leftovers fighting over who gets to take it home.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is
Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
And I've redone my parents' wedding song.
You mentioned
There's
that,
a
yeah,
music
I love
box
that.
next to their bed that plays that song. It's lovely.
Well, they should have done the. They should have done the. There's the wedding song in the second Godfather. There's like dun 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 dun.
Happy anniversary, Godfather 2.
So anyway, besides that, I have revamped my page. If you've seen me talking to you in the channel, in the chats, like you can see my page. You can subscribe to that as well. That's where you'll get copies of What If I Don't Like It, and where you'll see where we'll be talking about our next episode.
There you go. Can you reveal what that is yet, or no?
Oh, not after that yet. It's
okay.
Back to the Future. It's going to be January. You'll have to listen to that one to find out what February is going to be.
All right. Well, I will, because I think it's befuddling that. Like, that's the one? Okay. Okay, weird.
We got questions, we got answers.
I think 3 is the one I haven't seen, because I remember I got Back to the Future.
It's the most missable one.
1 and 2 on VHS when I was a kid. Because I would go to like, I mean, I've said this before, but I used to go to like every library sale, and I would try to get VHS tapes. And
I'll give you a little. Yeah, I'll give you a little spoiler. They also missed the middle one of the Star Wars as well. But they fixed that quickly.
Wait,
but that is also how they originally experienced Star Wars with that one missing. And there's a good reason why. You have to listen. There's a good reason why.
Wait. Empire Strikes Back, or the Send in the Clones, or whatever it's called?
No. This is someone who is my age. This is someone who's my age.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't know.
Send in the Clones.
That's what it's called, right?
Maybe next year.
They missed Empire. They missed literally the best of the 3 Star Wars movies.
That's what I'm saying. That's in
they
chaos mode energy.
They wound up fixing it, but it's a pattern for them.
I like the idea of, you see the first one, and you're like, when did all these Muppets get here? There's a lot of Muppets. Like,
a lot of them, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So, Kristina, let's hear some final thoughts.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed this movie, even though it's very, very depressing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little too close to home. It really dawns on you when you're older and you watch and you're like, whoa, we are living in this reality, sort of, and it's not that pleasant. But I feel like if you're someone who...
It really made it seem like it was going to be so pleasant.
Yeah. But yeah, great movie. Clive Owen, come back to us. I know the last time you were in anything major, you played Bill Clinton in American Crime Story. Come back to us.
Really? That was a thing he did? Wow.
I completely forgot that was him. I saw an episode of it.
Our man was like everywhere for a bit. He like rules it in this too. Like,
well, Inside Man's the same year.
Inside Man's great. Yeah.
They're both 2006.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
Right. Times change. It's not 2006 anymore.
Times change, mate.
You got replaced by Jason Statham.
Apparently, yeah.
Ugh.
I know, but what a repulsive sentence that is.
But Kristina, did you have more? I feel like I cut you off.
No, that's it.
All right. Katie, final thoughts.
Yeah, it's Kristina's right. It's they say that it's supposed to be a hopeful movie, but I'm not sure where you find the edge of hope. As someone who like voluntary human extinction movement group, active member, kind of
you're in a second rebel group that's trying to stop the fishes.
Yeah, stop them.
Bad idea.
I
It's not worth it.
I kind of just view this film as like, yeah, this is exactly why I feel the way I feel. So it's almost a confirmation bias film, but it's gonna hit based on where you are as a person. If you've never seen this before and you're experiencing a lot of emotional turmoil about where politics is right now, don't watch this film, because I think you'll have a really horrible time and you'll wind up judging it based on the lens that you are emotionally in. It is really quite a feat of cinematic technique and acting and storytelling that is prescient in a kind of depressing way. So put yourself in a, like, if you're going to watch the Bo Burnham stand-up that was the latest one, you need to like brace yourself. And this is the same sort of brace yourself, but both are artistically beautiful and valid, although very depressing.
Take a hit of strawberry cough first, mellow out.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. Brace yourself, Bo Burnham is coming.
But like,
you might want to dab that strawberry cough.
I'm pretty sure I saw Children of Men before 2021 too, but the time I remember watching it, at least 2021, it hit me so much more intensely now, like watching it now than it did even then, and that was only 3 years ago. It was crazy, but like I was in a completely different, political mindset or like idea about where we were. Like this time, it hit me it hit me like that tank hitting that fucking building.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Conan, saving the best for last, because this is your Redux. This is you wanted.
It is.
Yeah.
I felt like we righted a great wrong, like Sam Beckett Quantum Leap style.
So before you go on, I want to read a passage from Mark Fisher.
Oh man, we didn't spend any time talking about how neoliberal stuff was. Oh, shame.
Well, we talked about means testing at least.
We did, yeah. At least we got that in there.
Children of late stage capitalism.
Am I right? Yeah, look, I think this is not just one of the best in the genre, but it's one of my all-time favorites. Top 20 movie all time for me. And I've seen this one at least a dozen times, twice, maybe 3 times actually in the theater. I think it's phenomenal. And it doesn't knock you over the head with the world building, but it does a great job with it. It doesn't do walk and talk explainers. Everything you need in the movie. It doesn't insult your intelligence. It is a true horror movie in the concept of you have an increasingly aging populace, just like Congress, with no ability to continue on with new generations.
Just like Congress.
Just like Congress. And, like, look, here we are in 2024. Like, it's already been said with other folks' final thoughts, but it hits way different. Special shout out to the long shot battle scene near the end where they're trying to navigate through. It's some of the best cinematography and direction I've ever seen. Totally PTSD inducing. Happy accident. Amazing that it's this hyper intense cinema verite style is like an accident. Blows my mind.
Happy accident. Happy
little accident. Well, but I love that Cuarón wanted this to be more like Battle of Algiers and Blade Runner, and it's like a documentary of a time that hasn't happened yet. And I think he very much succeeded with that. It's one of the reasons why this is such a special movie. Personally, I like the guy's whole catalog, but this is the best for my taste, and it's only gotten better with age. So it's a real honor to be able to talk about it tonight.
It hits so differently, like based on so many factors, like how the world
can confirm. By the way, because I've seen it. I think I've seen it in like almost like 5-year increments, and every time it's been like, oh.
Yeah.
Closer. We're getting closer.
in a different way.
Every time you get a little bit more winded, you're like,
yeah, it's
like, this is getting a little too real.
You're doing the internal screaming, and it's like,
yeah. I expect this to be in a much different place discussing this than we
by the way,
2027.
Yeah, I know, right?
Way,
yeah,
great.
We'll do it again then.
Great line in this. Great line in this from Julianne Moore when she's like, "Yo, you hear that ringing in your ears? That enjoy that, because that's the last time your brain's ever going to hear sounds at that pitch." It's like,
I think about that.
Yeah,
my vocation, is music. We all have tinnitus. I think about that constantly. And it's like,
wait, who's talking about me right now?
It's like, oh man.
See, I used to be like, who's talking shit? Now I'm just, I I feel grateful that somebody's talking about me out there.
And last one to die, please turn on the lights. Some of the best graffiti of all time. That's why it's my subtitle on this one. But woke up, felt like shit. Went to work, felt like shit. That's not a rallying cry these days and age.
Yeah. I also like dating ain't what it used to be, right? Right? He's like, right, mate. Oh, he said amigo. He's like, dating ain't what it
amigo. Yeah.
He has to have ad libbed every amigo, right? Like that. There's no way that was in the script.
It seems like it was a decision. Yeah, for sure.
Are we having an after party?
I can't.
I think Conan can't. I mean, I set one up if you guys wanted to, but I don't know. I'm kind of tired today. There's one other thing I wanted to touch on before we finish, but now I can't remember what it was. It was my camera. Oh, I know what it is. So the only other thing I wanted to touch on that we didn't is the whole pull my finger bit, right? 2006, same year Shaun of the Dead came out, and it's like they did the similar kind of bit, like end of the world thing, where he's like I'm sorry, and he's like oh
yeah, blast out of fart. Yeah,
I think that kind of symbolizes, like, in a world where you're asking why should humanity continue to still exist, a lot of artists would say the completely irreverent. I can't say it. Irreverent.
Take three.
It's not gonna happen. Take three. It's the shit that doesn't matter. That's so whimsical and cute, and like we see people just be dumb, and that's when humanity is its most human. So yes, in a way, the fact that we still laugh when another person farts is like, okay, we might not understand Garnica, but we still laugh when people fart. So maybe we shouldn't die. And the answer is yes, we should still die. That's not good enough.
That's not enough at all. But
it does hit in that thing, right, where she's talking about how her first when she realized she was pregnant, and her first thought was like, I'm gonna kill myself. And then she's like, but then she felt, which I guess it takes on a different connotation now, but she felt the baby kick, and then she's like, I realized, like, it's alive, I'm alive. And that's kind of, I think, that moment of, I don't know if it's hope, but it feels like that's the direction that at least she's going in with that statement, right? Like, I'm alive. And it's like, yeah, that's the problem though, isn't it? Like, everyone's alive in this world.
But it's okay. But what I love about this movie is okay not to have the answer.
Yeah.
To have like a definitive moral, that is good, that is bad, and that's why it's special, and that's why it's something I think about all the time.
Or to even assume textually, right? What you're getting textually is what's actually going on. There's different, like, there's other readings of it where it's like, is this really just England, or is this kind of like, is there parts of the crisis that are manufactured? Is this a story we're getting from, like the like you can get really in depth with it within your own brain. You can go down that rabbit hole, and that's why it's a good movie. Because a lot of movies you can't do that, but this movie you could really go down quite a rabbit hole trying to decide whether how much of what you're being told is actually what's happening. On purpose, I think. I mean, it's meant to be ambiguous. But Conan, you want to close out on that line again?
Yeah, sure. Woke up, felt like shit. Went to work, felt like shit.